Am I the a-hole for buying off my family home and not giving it back to my uncles and fracturing the family? First time posting here, apologies in advance for any mistakes, but I'm writing this on my phone while on a train. Hello, I am Nath, 29 male, and this is a story about my family on my father's side. A bit of background first. We have always been well off, so to speak. My grandfather founded a flourishing business in the 70s, and he worked in it along with my father and my two uncles. Let's call them Mark and Paul. He also built a beautiful villa in the French countryside near the Côte d'Azur, and I spent every summer there, forming some of the fondest memories I have. When my granddad decided to retire in the early 2000s, my uncles decided to cash out of the family enterprise. My dad bought their part of the business, and they went their separate ways. As I said, I used to spend my summers in my granddad's home, and we formed a special bond. I am named after him, the first grandchild. You know how these things go. He was instrumental in shaping me into the person I am today, and I will be forever grateful to him. Back to my uncles. They never married and never settled down, but both fancied themselves excellent entrepreneurs. Spoiler, they weren't. And in 20-odd years, they burned through their money with poor and short-sighted investments. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, they were basically penniless, and they asked my grandfather to move in with him at the villa. Granddad was reluctant, but accepted, because he was getting old and didn't like to rely too much on the home nurse my dad was paying for. So they moved into the villa and started fancying themselves as the owners. Time went on, and my granddad's health got worse. He started to show signs of dementia, and in order to settle his affairs before it was too late, he decided to liquidate his estate. He passed the villa's deed to my uncles. My dad was not part of it because he had received an apartment in the city. Every one of his children and grandchildren received an equal portion of his money, and the rest, the largest part, was put into a fund. The fund is managed by his best friend, a lawyer, who has the duty of liquidating it upon my granddad's death. Granddad never wanted to go to a nursing home, so in exchange for a bigger share of the money after his death, he had my uncles promise to care for him, since they were living in the same house. If they in any way placed him in full-time care elsewhere, like a nursing home or my dad's care, the money would no longer be theirs. The lawyer also had power of attorney regarding my granddad's health. Of course, my uncles started talking about selling the house as soon as they signed the documents, saying that it cost too much. They were spending my granddad's money anyway, and it was too big for the three of them alone. They needed the money. That much was clear. My dad even offered to help them in order to keep them in the house, but they refused. So they sold the villa and got a nice fat check. They rented an apartment in Italy and moved there with my granddad, who right now is completely gone due to his dementia, and hired a full-time nurse to help them, whose pay is split equally between them and my dad. The house was sold to a development company which, for reasons unknown, decided not to build over it, but to sell it again. I really don't know why they made that move, but it's not the subject of this post. Ever since moving into the apartment, my uncles have started to complain about how cramped it is. I kid you not, and the financial burden of having to care for my granddad. My dad always gives them money for granddad-related expenses, but they are always asking for more. My siblings and I always make a point to visit at least once a week to help out and keep granddad company. I started working 3 years ago as soon as I graduated and used my share of the money to buy a car and invest in safe stocks. I'm no expert, but one of my best friends is a financial advisor and I rely on him. It hasn't grown exponentially, I'm no millionaire, but I managed to recover the car money and even add a bit to it. Plus, I have my trust fund set up by my dad. It's safe to say that, between family and work, I am comfortable. So, when I saw that the development company was selling the villa again, I started asking myself, well, why the heck not? As I said, I have the fondest memories in that place, and I've always loved its location, close to the Côte d'Azur, but still in a rustic and authentic area. I work remotely, so moving to France is not a problem. For days, it was just a fantasy, until I confided in my dad. He said he would love to see the house back in the family and even offered to cover part of the cost as a gift. I phoned a couple of contacts I have at various banks. and they offered me pretty reasonable mortgage rates since my dad was available to co-sign with me. I took some time to decide, as this would likely shape the next 20 to 30 years of my life. But I realized that I really did want to keep that place. So I said, okay, let's do it. I decided not to tell my uncles because I wanted it to be a surprise for my granddad in one of his rare moments of lucidity. We signed the documents last March, and the deed became mine. I posted about it on Instagram with a silly caption about having grown up and being a true homeowner now. You know, a stupid joke. My uncles called me like 3 hours after seeing the post. At first, their tone was congratulatory. Good for you for keeping the house in the family, and things like that. Then Uncle Mark dropped the bomb. So, when can we move in with Granddad again? I laughed because I genuinely thought it was a joke. Spoiler, it wasn't. Now that the house is back in the family, we can move him again and stay there. The apartment is so cramped. What followed was a very long discussion about how I had a duty to take them into my house because of all the sacrifices they had made for the family. They even played the guilt card, accusing me of not caring about my granddad. I told them, well, let's do this. I'll take only Grandpa into the house, and you're free to do whatever you want. Of course, they wouldn't hear of it. Not because they love Grandpa, they really don't, but because they want his money and know that his lawyer always checks in on things. A couple of days later, they showed up at the house. It's about a 4-hour drive from where they live now, and started berating me. They even tried to get inside, saying I had no right to keep them out of their house. I asked how it was any different from the development company, and they said that I was family, and family is different. They left only after I picked up my phone and dialed the police number. Since then, they've started smearing my name on social media and within the family, telling anyone who will listen that I'm a piece of crap because I'd rather have my demented granddad live in a cramped apartment than in the house he built. People in the family know them very well though, and nobody really trusts them. The uncles even tried to show up at my dad's office, but that backfired. They basically admitted they are running out of money. See, I didn't know this, but they've always had a gambling problem. Back when Granddad held the purse strings, he managed to keep them in check. But since he started to lose his mind, it's gotten worse and worse. My father presented them with the same proposal I did. Let's have Granddad in the villa and continue to pay for the nurse. Again, they flatly refused, accusing him of being after the extra money. My uncles even drafted a legal letter to the lawyer, demanding he order me to let them live in the house. The lawyer laughed in their faces, of course, and told them that moving Granddad into my house would not be a problem, but he had no power to compel me to take them in. Now we're at an impasse. My uncles refuse to let me, my dad, or my siblings see our grandfather, only allowing the lawyer to visit from time to time. They say it's clear we don't care enough. As a consequence, the family is basically split. My dad doesn't speak to them and limits himself to covering the nurse and medical bills. I find myself living in my dream home. I've started renovating it on my own. But at the same time, this new chapter, which should have been a joyful new beginning, is turning somewhat sour. All the beautiful memories of a happy family in that house are tainted by the present, in which that same happy family is now split and bitter. Now for the top comments. Since relationships are already destroyed, can you go to the authorities and your grandfather's power of attorney and file elder abuse charges? They're holding your grandfather hostage and he's no doubt suffering. Adult or senior services can remove grandfather from their apartment and may be legally placed with you or a place of your father's choosing. Get the POA to investigate for mismanagement of funds and have uncles charged too. Good luck. There are talks of involving the authorities. The attorney tells us that from what he can see, and from the reports of the nurse, they are not mistreating him, and that's what matters. But there are talks in place. Not the a-hole. They got what they wanted out of the house. They can't ask for it back, just because they're too dumb when it comes to actually saving money. It's not like they even sold it to you directly. The second they handed it over to the development company, all ties they had to it were severed, even if someone from the family bought it back. At this point, I'd invest in some security features like cameras, if there aren't already some installed. These two may get more desperate to get the house than you'd expect, especially if you begin to successfully pry your grandfather out of their grip. To be safe, I did install some cameras and changed all the locks in case they ever find some old keys. Next story. Am I the a-hole for digging into my sister's fiancé's past without telling her? I'm 34 female, and my younger sister Mia, 26 female, recently got engaged to a guy named Ryan. He's the kind of man everyone immediately trusts, well-spoken, confident, always the center of attention at family events. Everyone adored him, everyone but me. From the moment I met him, something didn't sit right. It wasn't anything obvious. He was polite, smiled at the right times, brought flowers for our mom. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all for show. A month after their engagement, I noticed little cracks. He gave different explanations for the same stories. He got cagey when asked about his job, and he once called me the wrong name. Not accidentally. It was like he forgot who I was. Instead of confronting him and risking a blow-up with Mia, I paid someone I know, a former journalist friend who now does private background checks, just to quietly look into his past. What came back floored me. Ryan had changed his legal name 3 years ago. Before that, he'd been engaged to someone else, a woman who filed a restraining order against him after accusing him of stalking and harassment when she tried to leave. There were no criminal charges, and everything was technically closed, but it was enough for me to lose sleep. I waited a week, trying to figure out how to break it to Mia. When I finally told her calmly, with printed documentation in hand, she stared at me like I'd slapped her. She didn't ask questions, didn't even read the file. She just said, "You had no right." She moved out the next day and hasn't returned a single message since. She's still with him. Their wedding is planned for next spring, and now I don't know what to think anymore. So, am I the a-hole for investigating my sister's fiancé without telling her, even though I found out something dangerous? You made a really poor set of assumptions here. Why do you think your sister isn't already aware of the info you found? I wasn't assuming anything. I just wanted her to have all the facts before making a huge decision. I'm trying to be supportive even if it's hard. Hopefully, you've planted a seed of doubt, and she'll see him with open eyes. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, and sometimes they know and don't care. You've done all you can do. You have to let her make her own choice. You're not an a-hole, but how would you feel if someone did the same to you and a seemingly perfect guy? Give her time. I hope she'll see it too, but it's her choice. If I were in her shoes, I'd be heartbroken. I just wanted to protect her. I'll give her space, but I'll always be here if she needs me. Something similar happened with my BFF's sister. She had a long-distance relationship with some dude. He said he was or had studied at the university I worked at. There were other red flags I can't remember. I looked for his info and he had never registered in any of the campuses. My friend had a talk with her and she was furious with my friend. They didn't speak for over a year. When they finally reconciled, this person has never been mentioned. Have hope. By the way, not the a-hole. Info should have been sent anonymously, not to just your sister, but to family and friends, including yourself. Then see what happened. That'd be great. Then put her sister in a position to have to explain to everyone the entire story she already possibly knew about. And the truth about his crazy ex and all this wide damage would have been done by her sister behind her back, who didn't know but a piece of the story. Way to possibly screw up your sister's life with this idea. I considered it, but I wanted to be sure before involving anyone else. I thought going directly to Mia was the best way to protect her, but I see now I could have handled it differently. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my husband relight my daughter's birthday candles for my 3-year-old to blow out? I, 32 female, have seen and read plenty of stories where spoiled kids blow out other kids' candles or throw a fit when they're not allowed to. My husband, 35 male, apparently has not. Friday was my daughter's 10th birthday. On the day of, I make them the food of their choice and a small cake. The party is usually held at a later date. After we ate, we got her cake ready and my 3-year-old was very excited. I had explained to him throughout the day that it was his sister's birthday, not his, so he had to wait for the cake. We lit the candles, sang happy birthday, and she blew out the candles. This might be where I was the a-hole. My husband grabbed the lighter and tried to relight them, so the baby can blow them out too. I said, no, it's our daughter's birthday, and I refuse to allow my son to be one of those spoiled kids who can't understand it's not their day. His face fell immediately. He said he was just trying to help and keep the baby happy. We dropped it there. He was kind of quiet the rest of the night. I didn't mean to come off harsh. I just didn't want my daughter to feel like she had to share her day, or that it wasn't all about her. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. My mom made me wait until I was 12 to have my ears pierced. She had various vague reasons why. All of my friends had theirs pierced years earlier and wore cute earrings, so for several years, I really looked forward to having mine done. On the day of that big birthday, I got called down to the school office. My mom was picking me up to take me to get my ears pierced. I had hyped it up in my mind for weeks beforehand. Mom had my younger sister, 8, in tow. I didn't think much of it because it was later in the day, and she never let my sister come home to an empty house. Once we got to the place, I found out she had made appointments for both of us. Totally ruined my birthday. Why did I have to wait until I was 12, but she could just get them whenever? Why was it a birthday gift for me and just a freebie for her? I might have forgiven, but that's the kind of thing you don't forget. It also made me resent my sister for a long time, even though, now that I'm an adult, I recognize that it wasn't her fault at all. Good on you for not spoiling your baby. I have pretty much the exact same ear-piercing experience. The joy of finally getting what I had wanted for so long lasted until I realized my mom was helping my sister climb into the chair. My daughters are just about 2 years apart. I made sure my oldest got her special moments solo. The younger one tried kicking up a fuss the first couple of times, and my mom even tried butting in. I threw my own ear-piercing story and a couple of other incidents back at her and told her exactly how that had made me feel in the moment. She was quiet for a minute and said, "What I did to you was wrong, and I'm sorry." I agreed with her. It was wrong, and I held firm so I wouldn't hurt my daughters the same way. Both of my girls had their milestone moments celebrated individually, and they're now in their 30s and incredibly close. Unlike my sister and me. I've seen the TikToks where the birthday child gets to blow out their candles and then their younger siblings, and sometimes cousins get to also blow out the candles. You know what I don't see in those videos? The birthday kid smiling. They look so sad and depressed as they watch kid after kid get to blow out the candles on their birthday cake. Kids need to learn it's not their day. They get their own day where only they get to blow out the candles. They need to let others do the same. It's not cute when a younger sibling gets the attention on an older sibling's birthday. It's taking away the specialness of the day from the actual birthday person.